So hi everyone, thank you for joining today's session. The Insurance Institute of London in association with Empowered Development, who have kindly offered to host this session for us on creating a meaningful development plan. So I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know Samantha Ridgewell, who Managing Director of Empowered Development, who is going to take us through this session. As Sam said, more people that want to keep their cameras on, the better. Feel free to ask questions. We've got kind of the chat box there. And then I'm sure kind of at the end, Sam will throw to you guys if you have got anything and you want to ask a message on camera. We are recording this session. It will be available to access afterwards on the IIL website and also on Empowered Development's YouTube channel. So we'll make sure that everyone gets the links to those afterwards. So I think that's probably everything. So over to you, Sam.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you, Gemma. So good afternoon, everyone. We're going to spend a little bit of time, what I like to call me time. So training, but to do with you, all about thinking about your goals and what you want to be getting out of this session. So we're looking at meaningful development plans today. I'd like to think lots of you have got development plans. It's probably something that goes alongside your appraisal process. But sometimes they can, I guess, get a little bit consistent year on year. It can be quite hard to piece them together and feel like they're tangibly going to work towards the goals that you've set for yourself. So we're going to work about some models that we can use to make sure we are getting the outcomes from the development that we're setting for ourselves that are going to fit with our career goals. So today we're going to have a look at, firstly, spending some time to identify what those goals are for you, what those objectives are. So we need to know where we're going in order to work out the right route to get there. So we'll give a little bit of time for that. We are going to use a breakout room for that particular session as well for setting things up initially. Breakout rooms for these sessions, please go in them. The thing about institutes is they're a brilliant way to meet people and network. The thing about Zoom is that we're out of the habit of doing so. So do go in, but I will put a lot of people in the room. So if you just want to kind of sit quietly, or if you do want to stay with me while those take place, that is fine too. There's no expectation that you have to do that, but it'd be great to see some conversations and some networking happening as well today. We're going to have a look then about how you establish what development needs are actually going to support you with those goals. So we'll get a bit of feedback from you on the type of goals that you've identified for yourself, and then what we might be able to put in place that's going to help you achieve those. And we're going to have a look at a 70-20-10 development plan. So a lot of the time when we think about development, we think about training courses. And of course, it's a vital ingredient. But just because we've been on a training course doesn't mean we've got all of the answers and we're ready to do things. So 70-20-10 is all about making sure that we are able to move the knowledge that we pick up through those kind of traditional learning settings into experience that helps us move towards those goals. So we'll be setting one of those up as well for yourselves today. All right, so I recognize some names. Quite nice to see some names I recognize coming into the session. Those of you I haven't met before, I'm Sam Ridgewell. I've been working in insurance now for around 14 years, and I specialize in training people across the industry. I used to work as a learning development manager within Liberty and left there about 4.5 years ago to set up Empowered Development, which is a training organisation specifically for people in insurance, very much about modernising the training that we have available for us as well. So the reason Gemma reckons lots of you see my name is probably because of LinkedIn. So hopefully lots of us are connected, but you can certainly come and connect with me on there if you've got some questions after the session. Excellent. Welcome in Verity as well. I think we'll just keep an eye on that waiting room, people coming on in. All right, so the first thing I would like you to think about is essentially, what are your goals? Because when we think about career goals, there's often an assumption that most people are going to want to move through the proverbial career ladder that we have set out in insurance for many decades. Something like underwriting assistants wanting to be an assistant underwriter, assistant underwriters wanting to be an underwriter, underwriters wanting to be senior underwriters, and so on. But actually, for a lot of people, that's not necessarily the case. Or if you gave it a chance to think about it, it might not be what you want to necessarily be doing. So I want you to just take a moment for yourself to think about, what is it that you are working towards? I've put on here some things that often come up, but you can absolutely go off the list, but just to give you a chance, something to think about. So it might be senior management. So you want to be responsible for other people, helping other people with their own development as well, but have that level of responsibility in there. You might want to be a subject matter expert. So you want to know everything about your class of business, or everything that it is that you technically do, but you don't really want responsibility to manage other people. Okay, so you want to just become that resource. You might want your manager's job. That's very normal. The proportion of the people on this call that probably are looking for their manager's job will be probably the highest. And at the same time, your manager probably wants their manager's job a lot of the time. So there is no shame in this. It's just about making sure we've got the transparency for ourselves as to what we're looking for. You might want to be somebody who's an innovator. So maybe there's a job out there that doesn't exist yet. You want to be somebody who's working towards creating those new roles and moving the industry forward. You might just want job security. So actually you're quite comfortable and happy with where you are in your career right now. You just want to make sure that you move along with it, or that you can do more of the things that you enjoy within that role. Maybe for you right now, it's all about qualifications, making sure you're learning the technical and getting the credibility around those recognized achievements in the industry. Or it might be that you want that external profile. You might want people to know who you are within the industry as well. So I'd like you just to take a moment to think about what's important for you. I'm going to pop you into some breakout rooms to just share what these goals are. One of the reasons for this is that when we come back, I'm going to get a bit of a feel from the chat box as to what the themes are coming through, so I can give you hopefully some specific examples that will help you with that. But like I said, breakout rooms are encouraged, but equally optional if anyone wants to hold back and eat their sandwich behind the screen whilst we do that. So put you into large enough rooms that we hopefully have a good size in there. Just going to give you 8 minutes in these rooms to say hello to each other. And excellent, come back here. If you go into a room and you realize you're the only one in there, don't worry, I can see that. I will move you into a room with other people. So just bear with me and we'll make sure that there's some good conversations happening. And I'll see you back here in 8 minutes. Okay, here we go. Full house coming back. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to go over to the chat box. I can see some of the rooms had some good conversations. You took your minutes. It's always a sign that you're in good conversation. If you can let me know in the chat box what types of goals you had, you can send this publicly, you can send this privately just to me, just so I can get a bit of a sense of the themes that we're seeing. Nice variety coming through. Let's take a look at what we've got coming through. Embed myself in a new role. Welcome, Amber. Nice to see you. So probably a few of you here who've just started a new job, thinking about the next job's probably a little bit earlier. You want to kind of settle into what that role is. So how you're going to learn and hit the ground running as quickly as you can. Qualifications is definitely a theme here. Qualifications, certificate, professional studies, apprenticeship, ACII. Also got subject matter expert coming through. Short-term knowledge building, confidence and relationships. Fantastic. Confidence will definitely come on to that. That often comes up when we use private chat. Often an objective for a lot of people. Subject matter expert, senior management, back into exams, management subject matter expert, background knowledge in insurance, job security, progressing into a senior role. FCII, CII, ACI, innovator, and recognised personally by others. Fantastic. So some nice themes, clarity going on there. The reason it's really useful to sort of put that in first is because there are so many things that we can look at and develop within our careers. And as well, you will look around your colleagues and people in the market and see people who think, oh, they're really good at that. They seem to know everything about that. Look how confident they are with that. And we look at this all and think we need to do every bit of it, which just becomes unrealistic and overwhelming. So you want to focus on what's going to be the most important thing for you and take the steps that you can make towards that. And when we have these big goals in place, they can feel quite large. Like if we take ACII as an example, ACII is quite a lot of steps, quite a lot of books, quite a lot of exams, quite a lot of days that you need to motivate yourself to do something that maybe you don't want to do. But if we got the goal at the end of it, we can break it down into sizable chunks, then bit by bit, we can make sure we're working towards the things that we want to achieve. And when we look at our career goals, the reality is some of the things that we're looking for aren't necessarily down to us. So if we look at Stephen Covey, he wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a fantastic book. It's a great recommendation for picking out some practical tips that we can apply. I will suggest, though, it's quite a tough book to read. There are lots of people pick it up and don't get all the way through it. There's some brilliant YouTube videos that shorten this one. In fact, we've got a 2-minute video that summarizes this one if you want to have a look at that. But what Covey did was some brilliant research. He went out and researched people who had essentially been effective. And by effective, he was looking for people who had essentially achieved what they'd set out to. And whether that be career goals, sports goals, financial goals, he was looking for consistent behaviors and habits these people had that helped them move towards achieving what they set out to. And the first habit he identified for them was this attitude of being proactive, the ability in any given situation to be able to identify what you can do and put actions in place to move towards that intended outcome. So if we take the subject of career goals, okay, now there may be people in here who have a career goal for a particular job title that you're after. The thing about working in insurance and the thing about any organization that's a large organization, there are going to be lots of levels to that progression that come down to things like policy, consistency, benchmarking, where organizations need to make sure that certain things are done in certain ways. And essentially, you can't control that. You can't change the policy. You can't change the way that these things are done. That might be things like promotions happening at certain times of year, an expectation that you've seen so many renewal cycles before getting that level of authority. So we'll have these things available for us for information as to reasons maybe why we can't hit that goal yet. And that can be quite frustrating. However, there's nothing we can do about them. They become our externals. What we need to look to do is go a bit deeper into that scenario and think, okay, well, if I need 2 years experience to get that level of authority, just because I've got 2 years of experience doesn't mean that I'm going to get that authority. So whilst I'm on this journey, what can I proactively do that means as soon as I've got that experience, it's almost a given that I'm ready for it? And this comes to the things in your control, right in the middle of that circle. So it will be things like completing the qualifications, letting your manager know what your goals are, asking questions, having a go at things for yourself before asking for the right answer, demonstrating that you're building that knowledge along the way. So by the time we're asking for the promotion, the confidence is there that we've already got the experience that's required within it. So whenever you find yourself in a scenario, you're thinking about what your career goals are and all the things that can't happen, I want you to ask yourself, so what? So what am I going to do about it? So what can I do today? So what conversations can I have? Because what we can do is eliminate any of our action by just discounting it having any effect because of these external factors. And whilst we're doing that, other people might be taking all these actions, meaning that our expectations are suddenly not realistic with what else everyone else is doing. So I want you to think about, for your goal, for yourself, you don't need to share this with anyone. You can share it with me privately in the chat or publicly in the chat if you want to, but you don't have to. For the goal that you've got, what could get in the way? And I'd like you to think about something that is quite likely or something that is already happening. Say something that is going to or could get in the way of you reaching that goal. This might be confidence, time, knowledge, hey, whatever it could be for you. So what's getting in the way? Now, once you've got that example, to break it down, what can you control about that? So what can you do to minimize the impact of it? Okay, excellent. So let's pick out an example coming into the chat box. We'll use this as the example to talk about. So what can you control? So your level of knowledge and experience. Now, this is actually really a key topic right now, because a lot of what we learn from each other. And when we're now balancing a hybrid working model, remote working, some of the time that we used to spend with other people is kind of disappear. We're spending more time by ourselves. So how can we make sure that we are looking for opportunities to build that experience up, build that knowledge up as much as we can, maybe outside of the role? So we've got some examples here. So absolutely CII, networking, looking for things outside of the job. So one of the things that I think the industry has developed very well over this whole remote working setup is a whole catalogue of podcasts. Hey, you can find dozens of podcasts on insurance right now, and you get industry experts talking about what they're doing, where they're taking their business, why they're taking it that way, what future expectations they see for the market. The amount of information that is available for everyone to access has actually gone up in that particular method of information. So I encourage you to have a look at that as well on there, as particular ones. I'll make some recommendations for them at the end, but if anyone listens to any, put some into the chat box. Time to study is so busy in working hours. Make time on the weekends, have a study schedule. Absolutely. The best thing to look at as well when we're looking at motivating ourselves towards studying is just chunking it up. So with all of our goals, we can have these big goals. We tell ourselves, I need to revise. I need to revise chapter 1. I need to do this thing. Motivating yourself to do something quite large can be really quite challenging. Instead, it's quite nice to trick yourself. So what I mean by that is, rather than motivating yourself to read a chapter, just tell yourself, I am going to spend 5 minutes at the end of the day reading a paragraph. Now, if you only read a paragraph and close the book, I owe you a drink. Okay? Because once we start, the actual action, starting the action, getting ourselves there, creates momentum. So when we have these big exercises and we're thinking, when am I going to find the time to do that? Instead, think, I'm just going to open the book. I'm just going to open that spreadsheet. Just start with a little action and see how far you can take yourself down that journey. Okay. Now, questions come through here. What can I do if my manager doesn't support my goal as they don't want to lose me? I'm glad you said this question, actually, because this does come up quite a bit. When we talk about career goals with our managers, we have to look at it as a collaborative conversation. Now, if you want to get a good outcome in a conversation, it's always worth thinking about, how is the other party coming into this conversation? What do they want to get out of it? So you've identified there, actually, for the other party, they want to see you staying in that role. They want that job security. Okay? They want to know that they've got you in that team. So that's a head start if we know that that's the goal. So when you're going into the conversation, if the conversation is all about where you want to go to and how quickly you want to move on, it might not be a conversation they buy into as much as you would like. Okay? Instead, if we flip it round for a what's in it for me. So I'll share this with you. This is something that I actually had myself. So before I started in Power Development, I knew I was going to leave about 2 years before I did to set this up. And I had a conversation with my manager at appraisal time. We went through and we did the whole planning of what we were going to do for the year. And I told her at that point, I said, I'm not going to be here in the long term. I've probably got like 18 months, 2 years, I think, that I'm left in this role. I want to give everything I can while I'm in this role. Okay, so you tell me what you want from me while I'm in it. In exchange, I want all of the experience I can get to help me with my next role. Now, for her, that was actually a really positive conversation because she knew that I was probably going to head off at some point anyway. But now she had the transparency and the certainty of what I was planning on doing and what my timescales were. And we had the opportunity to make sure we could trade off how we were going to help each other through that process. So absolutely brilliant. You're already having these transparent conversations, but just try and think, what is it in it for them that's going to allow them the security? Because from a manager's point of view, they want you motivated. They want you engaged. They want you learning. Okay? It's much better if we can get that in a collaborative perspective. Okay. Now, one of the issues I see in this industry far too often, which is actually a benefit, it's that people are really nice. Okay, you'll all agree, we work with nice people, insurance people are nice. Why is that a problem? It's a problem when it comes to feedback. A lot of the time, people will be told, just wait a year, wait a couple of years, keep doing what you're doing. It's a good job, more of the same. And you think, okay, I will do more of the same. And a year comes along and it's, oh, we need this and we need that. And you think, well, why didn't you tell me that a year ago? Now, what I see, a lot of the time, the challenge is around the topic of feedback, because we don't like to give news or feedback that might be misconstrued, that make people feel not as happy as they would be maybe if they didn't hear it. So I want you to imagine this scenario. You've gone in to deliver a presentation. This is a really important presentation for you. You've practiced it for days, really key clients there, and you go in with a colleague and you deliver the presentation, and it is fantastic. You walk out really standing tall, proud of yourself. You've done such a good job. And then you look down and realize you've got toilet roll hanging off your shoe. And you turn to your colleague and you go, oh no, look, I can't believe it. And they say, oh yeah, I saw that. I just didn't know how to tell you. That's a lot of the time what's going on with feedback. People are wanting to do a really good job. They're wanting to give as good impression as they possibly can. And other people are seeing things that they think, oh, that could be a bit better. But because 90% of what we're doing is good, it feels like pointing out that 10% might be just picking holes. It's not fair to criticize when everything else is good. But actually, we're letting people walk around with toilet roll on their shoe when they just want to do a really good job. Okay. So if we start with the assumption that we want more feedback, and the feedback we want, we need to be as clear and transparent as possible. So when somebody says you're doing a good job, more of the same, let me know what. So a couple of phrases for you. What went well? You did a really good job on that. Fantastic. What did I do well? Let me know, because I'll make sure I do that bit again. Okay. And then the phrase, even better if. Even better if allows you to get that 10%, that extra information, that picking holes, without saying, what could I have done better? What could I have done better implies it's a negative. Even better if stays as a positive conversation and pushes it up a bit. So if you find you're surrounded by people who give you lots of compliments and lots of praise, and you want to know when that toilet roll might be on your shoe, try this style of conversation to get into the detail a little bit more. And there's always going to be things, when we get this information, we might not necessarily agree with it. So how many of you recognize the dress on the screen? Let me know what color dress you see. You can see the poll open now. The majority of you are seeing white and gold today. A few black and blues, a few gold and violets. Anyone not seen this dress before? It's got their camera on. Shake your head at me. Everyone recognize this dress? This is a dress that went viral on social media a few years back. It was the fastest ever viral photo at the time. And what had happened was a gal had taken a picture of two outfits and sent them to her friends, asking which dress she should wear that night. And one of them replied and said the white and gold dress. And she said, what are you talking about? There is no white and gold dress. The dress we're looking at is actually black and blue. But a lot of us, when we look at this dress, see white and gold. Some of us see gold and violet, and some of us see black and blue. We are all looking at the exact same thing, and yet we're seeing it differently. What's this got to do with feedback? Whenever we go into a situation, there will be multiple ways people can look at the exact same situation, exact same conversation, and see it differently. Let's say you've gone into a meeting and somebody in the meeting, that everyone's talking over each other. It's really hard to get a word in. You think the best thing for you to do is just sit back and let everybody have this conversation, because there's loads of great ideas going on. So you just take lots of notes. As you walk out the meeting, your manager says to you, what was going on? You didn't look engaged. You're thinking, what are you talking about? I was engaged. I just couldn't get a word in. Everyone was talking. I thought, like, I took loads of notes. I thought that was the right thing for me to do. Your manager's seen white and gold and you've seen black and blue. You've been in the exact same situation, but seen it, you've perceived it differently. Now, just as we're looking at the same picture here, just because I say it's black and blue doesn't mean we can see it black and blue. You're still going to see it the way you've seen it. Having that understanding and appreciation that somebody's seen it differently absolutely helps. but we're never going to be sure of how everyone else is seeing things. If this picture never went viral, you would just assume everyone sees it the same way as you do. So when you get this feedback, sometimes you won't agree with it. It won't match your intentions. But it's really helpful to have that clear picture of how other people are perceiving things. Okay, so when we're looking at how to build out this development plan, there's 3 things that we want to focus on. 3 things that are particularly helpful for us when we're looking at developing ourselves. And this is a model called PI. PI was first introduced to me from Inga Bill. She talks a lot about her career progression, how she became the first female CEO at Lloyd's. And PI was something she was taught right in her graduate scheme that she implemented throughout her career. And it's essentially 3 things to consider for our progression. Performance, number 1, get the job done, do it well. This is essential, but it's also status quo. Everyone's doing it. So if we want to set ourselves apart and move up the hierarchy, we need to be doing more than what everybody's expected to do. The next section is image. This is your brand. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? This is how you're coming across in that meeting, the types of conversations you're having. And then finally, exposure. And this isn't who you know, it's who knows you. The more people who are aware of you within an organization or within the market, the more opportunities are going to come your way. Steve Jobs used to say you can only connect the dots when you look back. The more exposure you have, the more dots you're going to have available to you to take your journey in different directions. So we want to look for ways to make sure internally we're putting our hands up. People will find out who we are. We're having our camera on. We're having our full name when we're going into meetings. We're trying to get ourselves in the internal newsletters. And we are absolutely using LinkedIn so people can find out who we are and what we're about. Okay, so as we go through and we develop these things, we go through a bit of a journey. When we discover something that we want to develop that maybe we didn't know that we didn't do or we needed to know more about. So let's say, for example, we've just been told that sometimes we don't come across enthusiastic in meetings. Before, it was an unconscious incompetence. We didn't realize what we were doing and how our body language was giving that impression. Now we know about it. So it's a conscious incompetence. That means we are able to start building, developing that particular area. So a conscious incompetence is something that we can look to improve on and then move across to a conscious competence. Conscious competence is when you can do it, but it requires energy. It's not natural. We need to practice it. And over time, as we do that over and over again, it becomes so natural to us, it becomes an unconscious competence. The challenge with this model is that you feel like you're going backwards before you move forwards. You've learned something to get to the conscious incompetence section, but you've discovered how much you didn't know about a topic, so you now feel further back. When you feel like there's so much you didn't know, you're actually learning so much more. It's a great sign. Okay, so 70-20-10. How do we actually put this into practice? Now, let's imagine you're learning to drive. We're in a classroom. We're talking about how you drive. We spend a week in the classroom. There's loads of slides, there's some handouts. At the end of that week, do you know how to drive? Absolutely not. You've not even set foot in a car. How are you going to know how to drive? Yet when we look at our profession, we quite often go, well, let me do my exams. Then I'll know how to do insurance. Now, in the same way that when you're driving, you shouldn't be driving without your theory test. I absolutely encourage you do your exams to go on with your insurance career. But that's not where it ends. 70-20-10 is about how we build this in with experience. So let's say, for example, you want to increase your knowledge of pricing models. There will be courses for you. You can learn more about Excel, attend some CII lectures. You might want to go and sit with your actuaries. This is where you're going to start building in some exposure. You're going to start learning from other people, getting different perspectives. The textbook, the course has told you some things. Now you're seeing it in real life. And then we want to have a go. You want to play with it yourself. You want to see if you can get to the answers yourself and then go and get it checked with somebody else. So let's say you're looking to improve client relationships. Absolutely recommend Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Much easier read than Covey, my favorite book, as far as recommendations go. All about how we form relationships, how we engage with people. Fantastic education. Just because you've read the book doesn't mean anything's got any better. Who can you learn from? Who do you know that's brilliant at this? Let's watch them in action. Let's ask them why they said what they said and why they put it that way, and then understand how it all fits together. And then let's go out and have some coffees ourselves with clients. Let's go see if we can lead these relationships and become the point of contact. Those of you looking at introductory understanding of technical insurance, this is a real issue we've got right now because we're not spending as much time in the office learning through osmosis. It's taken longer for people to learn their basic skills. So we've got a program called Fast Start, which is a 12-month program to help people develop their knowledge month by month, building on from introduction to insurance, reinsurance, different roles, pricing models, claims, technically building up your knowledge. We've built in the exposure, so there's homework for you every month to go out and talk to people, to learn from people in the business, to say, we've had a conversation about this, how does that work for us? And then experience, actually having a go at it yourself, and most importantly, getting it wrong. If we're not getting anything wrong, we're not learning anything. If we got it all right, then we already knew it. When we're getting it wrong, that's when we're developing it. Now, for those of you that mentioned your CII, we've got an extra option to share with you today. So we have developed these online courses to help you with your CII while you're sitting at home and doing them. So you can go into any module. Let's take everybody's favorite, insurance law. And then chapter by chapter, you can go through and complete sections of the textbook, but through videos. So let's take everybody's favorite case, Donahue Stevenson. Breaking up the book for you, chunking it up section by section.
In this case, the claimant, Mary Donahue, was at a cafe in Paisley with her friend. Her friend purchased an ice cream float from the shopkeeper, which was a bowl of ice cream and a can of ginger beer in an opaque tin. Upon pouring the remnants of the ginger beer into her bowl, a decomposed snail came out.
You can do practice questions, and you can hear conversations from us that are a little bit more informal about how to
Okay, chapter 2.
Audios. There's also a whole load of tips for you for motivation and so on in there as well. So if you've put in that you're looking to improve and speed up with your qualifications, there's an open offer for everyone who's attending this live. Not for those of you watching it on YouTube, but you can drop us an email over the next 24 hours and tell us which module you were studying, and we will give you free access for 1 week to try it out for yourselves and help you with that particular development needs. That's where you can go for that one. Okay. So when we're looking at doing our CII, the reason the CII build it up in that way is because when we look at certificate and we look at diploma, it's all about understanding what's in the textbook. ACII is all about application of knowledge, about building in your own experiences and having a go at applying it to what the environment is for you. It's encouraging you towards the experience side of the qualification. If you feel like at certificate and diploma, you're just learning lots of words, learning lots of text, you are. It's helping you on that journey towards the 70-20-10 model. But once you've got that information, you really need to be going out and finding out how to fit it into your business. Now, I just want to pick up on one of the requests people said around confidence and building out confidence, because this does come up as a very popular topic. In fact, Gemma, we might do this as a future session. But just couple of quick things for you with confidence, because there is no such thing as a confident person and not a confident person. All of us have the ability to be confident. If you're out with your friends, if you're out with your family, there is no way you're worrying about what you're saying and what you're doing with your hands. Hey, but put you in a presentation, you're going to overthink everything. It's not because you're not a confident person, it's because you're doing something you're not used to doing. You're essentially outside your comfort zone, and it makes your mind challenge you, question you, and tell you you're not good enough. It's natural. This is always going to happen. The way that we conquer it is to do things outside of our comfort zone more and more. But rather than jumping out of the comfort zone to give that presentation that we're afraid of, we've taken small steps towards it. So we've been given a presentation in a team meeting. We've gone into our old school to talk about our job to students. We've taken 5 minutes in a Zoom call to talk about something we delivered on. We look for small opportunities to expand the comfort zone. Imagine it like an elastic band. We're building it out, we're pulling it. And then more and more is going to fit within it. You're never going to hit a point in your career where you wake up and go, I know enough, I'm confident now. Hey, it's just going to come gradually by building in those experiences. So whenever anything scares you a little bit, move towards it. That's always my top piece of advice for career development. Do the things that scare you, but do them bit by bit so they don't make you stress when you do them. Okay, I'm going to come into the chat box if anyone's got any questions. Say if you aren't connected with me on LinkedIn, feel free to. We have giveaways on Instagram for our resources as well continuously. So after this week, if you want to get another freebie, feel free to come find us on there. And I am on TikTok promoting jobs and insurance to young people. So if any of you know young people looking for a job, want to get into insurance, or if anyone's on TikTok and you want to back me up when I tell people insurance isn't boring, I would really appreciate the support. I'm having a challenge a lot of the time to try and do that. So come give me a hello there. Any questions though, pop them into the chat box. We've got a little bit of time to get specific with anyone's individual needs. Whilst we're waiting on the chat box, we'll finalize where we're going to leave. Okay, so we've gone through what your goals are and your objectives are. What your development needs are that are going to support those goals, be it, you can get a bit more specific here if you want to put your questions in, and then looking at a 70-20-10 development plan that's going to help you. So how can you take those suggestions, those training courses and build them into experiential learning? You will receive a copy of the slides and say the recording will be available for you on Gemma's IIL website as well as on our YouTube. Podcast recommendations, a few for you. We of course have a podcast, Empower Talks, if you haven't found it already, where we talk about careers and all these types of things, about how you can progress your own insurance career. There's one called The Voice of Insurance, where leaders across the market are interviewed about their business models, where they're moving, where they're going forward. It's very thought-provoking. The LMA have recently launched one called LMA Talks, where they're interviewing people across the market about trends in the market as well. And you would also see lots of large companies now running them. RPC have got quite an interesting one. So RPC, the law firm, they get quite a lot of insurers in talking about sort of claim scenarios. So I think quite a topic that we often don't see covered so much on the podcasts, that are useful to have a look at there. Yes, there's a few for you. I think I'm going to try and congregate a bit of a list of those and share them on LinkedIn, because we've got a growing amount across the industry. Okay, and I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I've got no questions coming in before we finish for today. Thank you for the virtual claps. So lots to think about, absolutely. Some of you are probably eating your lunch while you've done this. Others are about to go grab your lunch. Either way, one of the things that's really important to remember about learning is we have a very fast forgetting curve. You're in a session, you're motivated. Yes, I'm going to do that. Brilliant. Yes, you write all these notes down, you open up your emails and everything disappears. What I'd love you to do is open up your to-do list. Okay, so your to-do list where you actually write down the things that you actually do rather than just where your notes are for this session. On that to-do list, write down 3 things you are going to do. So they might be spending more time thinking about what those goals are, getting some advice from someone who's gone ahead of you, so somebody who already is that subject matter expert, somebody who already is in the role that you're aspiring to. Okay, signing up to particular courses, signing on to some of the podcasts. Okay, so 3 things you're going to promise yourself to do, but if you put them on your actual to-do list, chances of you doing them are going to shoot right up. Excellent. Over to Gemma.
Thanks, Sam. I think that was a really useful session. I've definitely taken scribbling away and taken a few things away with me, which I will definitely be working on. As Sam said, there are other sessions that we can run. So if you scan this QR code, or you will also receive an automated feedback survey. If you can take a couple of minutes to fill that in for us, it really helps us know kind of what further sessions you would like. There's actually a comment box where you can put any future topics or subjects you would like us to focus sessions on. So if you can spare a few minutes, we really do appreciate it. We have another session with Empower Development coming up next Thursday at 11, which is all around CII qualifications. So if you haven't already signed up for that, you can register on the IIL website, and we still have a few spaces available on that course. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And just, yeah, thank you very much again to Sam and Empower Development for taking the time today to speak to us all.
Good to see you all. I will hold on if any questions come through, if anyone wants to hold on, but otherwise, nice to see you. Have a nice day.